What's up, peoples? Gonna read a bit out of Penny's book. Just a bit. 1 or 2 chapters, 3. 42 chapters altogether. Chapter 1. The Last Dance. I am at Laura's home near the Green Mountains of Vermont. It is dawn. The last morning that Laura walks. She will die soon. This is the moment when she voluntarily falls to her knees, and in this moment she has a vision of a deer. In her tiny bathroom with a knotty pine Dutch door, just 17 slow steps from her recently arranged bedroom on the first floor. In this, Laura calculates by the hour her body's withdrawal from this world. With the mind of a chemist, she uses a measuring cup to calculate the amount of fluids taken in and out. She is not giving up hope. She glances up through the window toward the mountains freshly covered in snow. She calls me into the bathroom near her. In this moment, she voluntarily drops to her knees. She whispers her vision, her epiphany. Oh, I see the deer. It's breaking through the snow and ice and is drinking deeply from the cold water. The approach of the vision is swift, quiet, and filled with awesome beauty. A fleeting, gentle creature of the earth and wind. The deer is sacred in many ancient cultures. I know that Laura has been unable to eat or drink for days. She is starving, dehydrated, medicated, and is dying. Only Laura, who cherished nature and wild animals, can see this deer and river. This creature with his beauty and swiftness is precious to Laura. The ancient ones said that the deer is a herald of death. Suddenly, in complete openness, she is passionately praying aloud for the earth and the rivers, for all lives, and for the planet's well-being. Feeling awe, I quietly stay near her, witnessing and hearing her wholehearted prayer. Her physical strength gone now, Laura can no longer stand. Gentle night helper Jamie and I are unable to lift her, fearing we might hurt her swollen, fluid-filled belly. Jamie summons her husband Eugene from his brief sleep in the living room. Sleepily, he comes to tenderly lift her. She rises slowly in his arms, standing on his feet. Here, in a dreamy dawn world, he, a knight in his pale blue bathrobe, and she, his lady in her oversized silk pajama bottoms and cotton top, slowly move together across the room, swaying, humming, and dancing. They dance regally to Laura's bed, where she comes to rest, for her final hours of labor and liberation. I am watching the utter sweetness possible in human relationship. Here at this fragile, tender time of great transition is the fruit of nearly 3 decades of relationship, the last dance. Standing near, I am witnessing and remembering simultaneously part of a dream that Laura had shared with me nearly 8 years ago at the beginning of her Jungian analysis. Dream. I am looking for a dance partner. Laura has danced her life. Those of us who know her are forever blessed by moments such as this. Chapter 2. Laura calls. Beginning. One afternoon in late summer, I receive a telephone call. I'm working in my garden and come in to answer the phone. Hello, how may I help you? Hello, my name is Laura. A dear friend, a therapist in California who knows about Jung's psychology, referred me to you. I'd like to come see you for treatment. I have been thinking about this and reading some of Jung's work over these last few years. Her voice is soft and gentle with clear articulation. I understand that this referral was made with the personal care of a close friend and carries a kind of blessing or hope. I understand this from my own experience, that when psychoanalysts, psychotherapists, psychiatrists, and doctors refer their own close friends or family to another similar professional, they hope for the best care and a good fit in relationship. What are your concerns, and what brings you to this decision? I ask. If I were to state it succinctly, it would be a broken heart, she says. We speak briefly about her life concerns as a middle-aged woman and arrange a time to meet in my home office outside of Boston. I live in a quiet, old neighborhood of Victorian-era homes near Tufts University, a few miles north of Boston. My office, once a carriage house, is a separate building. The space is simple and open with large windows, oak floors, a cathedral ceiling, skylights, and a very old Chinese rug. The rug is bordered in deep blue, the background a deep rust color with a gold center. Birds of paradise with long tail feathers hold flower baskets in each of the four corners. It belonged to my Irish grandmother and was in her Washington, D.C. home. This rug was a magic carpet for me in my early childhood during very difficult years. The rug has traveled with me throughout my life and serves as a reminder of support, survival, ancient cultures, art, and the power of imagination. The office is furnished simply with a large, comfortable, light blue couch, my wooden rocking chair, an antique oak secretary desk, stored here for a friend, and 2 full bookshelves. French doors open onto a very small yard and garden with a pink dogwood tree that blooms profusely in late April. Light enters the room from 4 directions. For me, meeting every new patient is a conscious step into the unknown. At a profoundly deep level, it is similar, a sliver of similarity, to a mother meeting her newborn. I feel anticipation and curiosity, forgetting all of the hard work to come. I always experience this first meeting as a fateful encounter. It is always my hope that this relationship will become life-changing, or at least life-enhancing for us both. Although I tell Laura that I will be relocating to the Southwest in several years, my more immediate concern is her commute to my office from her home in Vermont, a significant trip. 6 hours round trip by car, at least once weekly. She is undaunted by both concerns. I am ready to meet next week. I want to begin. Laura arrives promptly for our first meeting, her first session. She has no trouble with my directions. Laura is remarkable in her willingness to make a significant effort to travel so far to see me. She seems in many ways quite familiar to me. And as a new patient, she is simply a person seeking help with her life. She is emotionally warm, physically fit, and of medium stature. She is perhaps 5'3" tall and has grace about her. Laura has a small build, good posture. She offers a beautiful soft smile and looks directly at me with clear, bright eyes. After we exchange a greeting with our eyes and a soft handshake, she sits on the couch near my chair. She seems at ease with me, interested and curious. Middle-aged, she is dressed in soft earth-toned clothing, no jewelry, no makeup. Her medium-length brown hair is brushed and held back simply. She's not at all glamorous. She presents herself with a quiet beauty and natural elegance. It's easy for me to like her immediately. Settling into the couch, her hands move to her lap, her eyes cast downward. She takes a breath as if she is gathering within before starting something important. Her story begins. I spent a lot of time in boarding schools beginning at age 6 and all the way through high school. There were certainly many advantages to such communal life in beautiful country settings. It began with my mother's teaching at a school when I was about 5. We had financial needs. Mother needed to make a living during the war, and I could attend the schools for almost no cost. Laura hesitates, then says, "Perhaps my living with my mother at boarding schools made up for not having much of a home life in my early years." I already feel a sense of tragic loss. She takes time to breathe. Her hands are very still in her lap, her eyes still downcast. She tells me that she had very recent experience that prompted her to make the call to seek help. The actual immediate event that triggered her was a phone call from a man she had not heard from in several years. She begins to cry softly. Alex was my first real boyfriend, my first love. He was a transfer student, born in Germany. He graduated from the same boarding school several years ahead of me. We wanted to marry. Laura looks up and away and continues. He lived near Dresden during World War II. Toward the end of the year, American bombers targeted his city. He and his mother suffered the horror and chaos of the bombing of their city, including their home. He survived the bombing. His mother did not. His father was lost earlier. Laura covers her eyes, then sighs. He told me stories of living in a war zone and described crawling out of the rubble that had been his home. She tells me that he was sent to America by concerned relatives. They wanted him to complete his education, and it wasn't safe living in Germany. They were able to secure a place for him at the boarding school. She and Alex shared a love of nature and learning. They fell deeply in love. She continued, "I was so young, completely innocent. After graduating from high school, he left, returning to his relatives in Germany. The war was over." Laura's father was an only child, the son of German immigrants. They were Christian. He was educated as a civil engineer and business administrator. He refused to allow her to follow Alex to Germany and wouldn't give his permission for her to marry him. She never forgot her father's firm refusal of her wishes. He told me that my Alex was too old for me. I was much too young to marry, and that Alex would want to live in Germany. My father wouldn't allow it. His words were final. I was obedient to my father's authority. Crying quietly, Laura lifts her head and says, "My life's course was altered. I lost the young man I loved. At that time in my life, I had only begun to understand the trauma and collateral damage of war, the imprisonments, killings, and torture of innocent civilians." Laura turns her head from side to side. "I was so ashamed of myself, disappointed that I backed down, surrendered to my father's demands." The lives of Laura and Alex followed different paths. Beginning in her last year of high school, she began a deeper study of history and began to contemplate the meaning of war. She felt the need to know about the Holocaust. She graduated from high school, quietly depressed and bearing a broken heart over the loss of Alex. She then reveals to me that she kept a sporadic correspondence over decades with Alex after they separated. As Laura speaks, I am reminded of the patients I have worked with over the years who attended boarding schools. Few did this so early in life or for this length of time. All these patients discuss disrupted family experiences and longing for an intimate, nuclear family. What are the consequences for Laura? I began at Bernard, a women's college in New York City, on a full scholarship, Laura continues. She says that her father wanted her to live at home, go to a state school, and become a teacher. The only reason she could go to Bernard was because of this scholarship. After just 1 year, she withdrew to get married. In reflection, she is sure that there was some desperation in her decision. Marriage, early marriage, was what so many people did in that time, the 1950s. She says, "I truly regret my decision to leave college and get married so soon." Laura relates that after the loss of Alex, she was very sad and longed for love and a family. Nick, who became her new husband, had also graduated from high school a year ahead of her. She met him in New York while socializing with college friends. Dating him, Laura found a new sense of life and of a future stirring. Nick had a way of gathering interesting people for enjoying music and rich conversations. Laura, emotionally vulnerable, immature, and naive, found Nick irresistible. He was so exciting, so handsome and charming. He was a Princeton student with a beautiful mind, and he was in love with me. He had me in the palm of his hand. He proposed, and her parents supported her decision to marry Nick. After her brief college experience and her marriage, Laura stayed in New York City and found work in textile design. At this time, my mother died suddenly of a stroke. I was 20. There was no funeral service. The following year, I miscarried in the 5th month of my first pregnancy. I was alone. Nick was away. My family was away. Everyone was away. For Laura, it was a shocking, bloody, frightening event. Shortly after the death of Laura's mother, her father remarried. His new wife had been his longtime secretary. In describing her first marriage, Laura says she became deeply disappointed as time went on. At first, the young couple shared Nick's parents' apartment. Before the marriage, Nick had barely finished college. He had skipped many classes, preferring to write and socialize. School was less important than his plans for and dreams of becoming a writer. We lived an unconventional lifestyle with social gatherings for the discussions of politics and art, Laura says, sighing. Nick and his friends were passionate, exciting people. She adds that Nick's paid work was infrequent. Laura and his parents supported him. In her second pregnancy, Laura reluctantly agreed, with her doctor, to take medication to prevent another miscarriage. She read about birthing and came across the Lamaze method of natural labor and delivery. This breathing method allowed a woman greater involvement in the birth experience. I sought and found a doctor in New York City who would allow natural childbirth, which wasn't common, especially in cities like New York. At the time, she had been concerned about the medication she ingested during the pregnancy, but received little support or interest in this issue from relatives or friends. She expressed lingering questions after about the effect of the medication upon her pregnancy. "The birth was wonderful," Laura says. "I was awake. I felt such joy." Nick was not with her at the birth. Few men entered the delivery rooms of hospitals at that time. She had wanted to nurse her baby girl, Karen, although her mother-in-law discouraged her. The apartment was cramped. Her mother-in-law was very emotionally involved and physically intrusive in the small apartment. "I had no real privacy," Laura sighs. "It's as if she wanted to take my baby away from me." Her mother-in-law competed with her for the baby's care. Laura managed, with little privacy, to nurse her baby for a few months. Soon after, Laura returned to work. She helped with housework and cooking for the family. Occasionally she took her baby to work, and remembers Karen cradled on her lap as she worked, designing textiles. At the apartment, Nick and his parents were frequently entertaining numerous friends. Laura enjoyed the company, but could have used more physical help shopping, carrying groceries up the stairs, preparing meals, cleaning up, and doing the laundry. Hospitality was very important to her, and with so little support in those years, she eventually became exhausted.